It's basically like putting a fake skin over your wound while it heals. Welcome to Roughing It with Ruth, the channel where everyone is injured all the time and we like discovering new first aid equipment that makes our lives better. This is Ralph, our model for today.
Hi, I can't see anything.
You can't see anything there. I'll put a shadow over your face. Ta-da! And this is Ralph's almost healed wound. And the new thing that we have discovered instead of plasters are these things. This brand is called Hydrofilm, but you get lots of other things. I think the previous one we used was Parafilm or something like that. It is basically a transparent adhesive film dressing that's very, very thin. And it just kind of keeps the wound moist, but it works a lot better than a plaster, and I'll go into the reasons why in a second. Okay, the number one thing that you need to remember when you're using this is that you have to make the thing pretty clean. So we're just using an alcohol pad to clean it, because if you don't make it pretty clean, then you're trapping a whole lot of bacteria and stuff in there with your wound, and you're creating a very nice environment for it to get infected. And it does help to also clean the area around the wound pretty well as well, to make sure that the thing sticks. Alcohol is very nice because it evaporates very quickly, but if you use something else, then you also just want to make sure that it's very dry before you try to stick anything to it. This is what it looks like out of the packet, and it's actually too big, way too big, but if we cut it in half, I think it will work better. Ta-da! So this Hydrofilm one has very helpful labels with like what you're supposed to take off first. 1, 2, and 3. Because it's a very, very, very thin film, and it's got some plastic stuck to it to make it easier to handle. So you can see here, this is actually the really, really, really thin film that's been underneath there all along. And it's very malleable, so you can just make it stick everywhere. And what you want to try and do is get it to stick down pretty flat with no creases. Because if you make creases, then it creates a channel to let stuff go into the wound. So that's pretty good. And the great thing about these particular plasters, as you can see, is that you can still see the wound through the dressing. So you don't have to take a bandage off and on the whole time to see what's going on. You can see the wound, which is great. The one thing that they're not so great at dealing with is wounds that create a lot of exudate or transudate or any sort of gunk that comes out of the wound. It's not going to work very well with these particular plasters. This will not work at all for wounds that are very infected. You need to first clean the infection and make sure that it's not infected before you put this stuff on. But it really does heal a lot faster using this. You can actually see on Ralph's leg, we'll show that to you later, the scar that he has from the previous thing we used this, and it's much, much better, much, much better. And it's very unobtrusive as well. I mean, you can basically not see that Ralph has a plaster on. Like, it just looks kind of normal.
I can cover it with my hair.
Yes. And there's the other half of the plaster. These things are fairly expensive. That is the one other downside, is that these things are fairly expensive. So this is another film plaster that we're just using on top of a blister that popped, and the blister part of the skin came off. So we're just using the film plaster as like an extra layer of skin, and it conforms really well to the skin around it, and it looks like it's going to stick fairly well. Much, much better so far than a regular Band-Aid plaster.